The other challenge is just identity. Having sat in so many different roles within institutions, being on admin or professional services or academic, and those words that we used to just group people together in these big clumps, I was the same person in every single one of those clumps. The research process kind of helps with that, doesn't it, in a way, because you do the project, but then you disseminate, you evaluate, you look for impact, and actually that time that you're spending doing that is time really well spent because it's informing your future practice.
Hello there, I'm Sarah McCluskey and this is Research Adjacent. Each episode I talk to amazing research adjacent professionals about what they do and why it makes a difference. Keep listening to find out why we think the research adjacent space is where the real magic happens. For this episode, I'm talking to Claire Toogood. Claire is the Research and Insights Manager for membership organisation AGCAS, the Association of Graduate Career Advisory Services. Claire has walked the line between research and research adjacent throughout her career, sometimes falling on one side and sometimes the other, so it makes sense that her current role straddles both camps. She does research herself using insights to help improve careers provision, and she also supports AGCAS members to do their own research. In our conversation, we talk about why research is valuable currency in universities, her own squiggly career, navigating long COVID, and not waiting for permission. If you're listening to this episode soon after it came out and like the sound of the case study training that Claire talks about, she has a session on the 3rd of July 2024, which is open to both members and non-members. You'll find a link in the show notes. In the meantime, listen on to hear Claire's story. Welcome along to the podcast, Claire. Thanks so much for coming along to join us. Could we begin our conversation by hearing a little bit about what it is that you do?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me today. So I am Research and Insights Manager at AGCAS, which is the Association of Graduate Career Advisory Services. So we're quite a small membership organisation, and therefore my role is really varied day to day. So I do some work on research myself, where we're looking at things that our membership needs to know about careers, what's happening around employability, wider higher education sector stuff. But I also support our members in doing their own research. So that might be through the various task groups that we have, for example, who look at things like international students or disabled students and how they're working with them and how to really make sure they're doing that in evidence-informed ways. Or it could be more sort of one-to-one conversations with individuals who are thinking about how do they gather the information that they need or do a little bit of research or get a little bit of funding, and supporting those kind of conversations too.
Yeah, fantastic. It'd be really interesting to hear a bit. I think people might be surprised to hear that a kind of membership organisation, professional support organisation, both does research and encourages its members to do research. So what's the reasoning behind that? What does the research help with?
I think it does come down to that working in evidence-informed ways. You know, we're in a really fast-moving sector. Higher education is full of challenges, full of excitement, but that does mean that we really need to keep up with what is happening in the wider world and what that means for careers and employability professionals of all sorts. You know, in recent years, we've seen really the sector expanding out into a range of different roles, so many more data and insight professionals, for example, working within careers now. So it's partly being part of that sector, being of it. We need to work in the same way as the rest of higher education. We need to do the things that are proven to work, and we need to find out what those are. So there's that element of it. And then I think it's just the natural curiosity of our membership as well. So careers people, by I think their very nature, are often curious, really interested in exploring lots of different things. And that just lends itself to supporting research activity amongst that membership, that this is something that many of our members want to do, want to be involved in. And therefore, if we can offer that to them as part of the membership, then we're providing an even better service. The other thing that I think is really important when we're talking about higher education is that research can be a form of currency for our members as well, in terms of leverage in certain discussions, the data that you might need to make an argument for something. So there's that context as well, where I think the membership benefits from the central research that we do, but also being supported to do their own research activities.
Yeah, I think it's certainly the case that in your research-led organizations like universities, being able to say, the data says this, therefore this is what we should be doing, can be quite powerful, can't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So besides supporting research, what sorts of other things does AgCAS, have I got the pronunciation right there? Yeah, as an organization do?
Yeah, so we're very busy, small but mighty, I think. So we have a lot of learning and training courses targeted again around the careers and employability professional space. We run annual conferences where people can come and meet in person, because some of our training is in person, but a lot of it is online now, as so many organizations are. So we also have those conference events where people can meet up. We lobby on behalf of our members. So we lobby central bodies, we lobby government to try and represent the profession and make sure that our voices are heard. And we offer a range of opportunities for our members to be involved in activities that help them develop in other ways. So we have voluntary opportunities on our task groups, our working parties, on our board, where people can gain experience within the organisation and working at that sort of sector level above and outside of their institution, I suppose, to get that broader picture and really help them build their careers too.
Oh, excellent. So a really broad range of activities to help with that professional development. Fantastic. So I think membership organizations, there's a lot of them out there, but it's often not the first place that people think of when they think of research adjacent jobs. So what's been your journey into this particular role that you're in now?
I think, like many of the people that you've interviewed previously, it's been squiggly.
Yeah.
So I suppose, worked in higher education
Mm-hmm.
Many years ago at the University of Bristol, where I worked in their planning and projects team
Mm-hmm.
and spent about 5 years there, sort of starting to understand HE as an environment and what it might be like to work in higher education. And then when I relocated with my family to the West Midlands, I worked at Harper Adams University, starting out there actually in the timetabling team, which had real similarities with projects and planning, I suppose, because you needed to know the entire institution inside out to get things done. So it's a really helpful role to find my way into any organisation. From there, I then moved into careers advising myself. So I took an additional postgraduate qualification and spent 8 years working as a careers practitioner. And alongside that, I also took on a role as a researcher developer. So working specifically with PhD students and early career researchers to build a sort of learning needs analysis program and a training program and development program alongside that supported them as a group and as individuals too. So that was really formative, I think, in building my understanding of research and my interest in that area alongside my sort of careers and employability knowledge. I then moved into an academic role for about 4 years, working as a lecturer and also a researcher. So doing some of my own research there while teaching students. But that 4-year period started in October 2019. So you can imagine not the best time to move jobs. So that was a real baptism of fire, but really, really good in terms of the learning and what I picked up in that time. And yeah, challenging, but interesting. So after that, an opportunity then came up at AgCAS, which felt like it just drew together the different things I was interested in, the research, the insights and data, but also that careers environment, coming back to that with the practitioner experience, but taking a different role. It just felt like it came together really well for me. And so it's the membership organisation, but it's also what we do as a membership organisation that drew me to the role.
Yeah, of course. That does sound very squiggly. So, I mean, but it also sounds like, well, I don't know. Harper Adams is quite a small university, isn't it? So that it sounds like you were doing kind of a bit of everything when you were there. Maybe now also doing a bit of everything where you are now. Maybe that's something that you're drawn to.
Yeah, I would say so. So small university, a small specialist, land-based sector, really. So covering all sorts of things, but all linked to the land in different ways. And that meant the careers team was small. And so just myself and one other person working as a research developer. I was working alone and then finding sort of collaboration with different people in different teams, but had no other resource to really support that at that time. And yeah, AgCAS is very small in terms of the staff team as well. We have a large membership, so over 5,000 members, but we're quite a compact staff team. So yes, I think there is that element of I definitely like to get involved in lots of things, and small teams allow you to do that.
Yeah, great that you found those opportunities. So over the course of your career and all those different things that you've done, I'm sure there must be some things you've done along the way that really stand out, that you're really proud of. I wonder if maybe you could tell us about one or two examples.
Yeah, of course. So while I was at Harper Adams, I started a couple of research projects myself. So I did a project on inclusive leadership management, people development in agriculture and agri-food, because essentially I went to teach that subject, and I love teaching with case studies. I find them really exciting, really, really great for active learning. But when I went to look for some of those, they didn't exist. So I went and found some funding and created those myself. And that was a project I loved doing. So I got to interview some really interesting people, travel to really interesting places just across the UK, but, going to speak to people in fields in the middle of nowhere. It's great fun. Go and meet their sheep, that kind of thing. So I had a great time doing that. But then I also was able to test out what I produced from that project with my final year students, take the case studies that I produced and use them in a class and evaluate how they'd responded and engaged with those case studies and write that up into a journal paper eventually. So that really gave me confidence in what I was doing in terms of my own research activity, but it's kind of led to various spin outs. And so what it's allowed me to do is to support ICAS members with similar projects, because case studies and careers align really nicely. So it's allowed me to kind of talk people through what I did, what best practices, hopefully mostly they align, and to really kind of build on that experience. And actually I've put together a training course now specifically linked to using case studies and how that connects up with careers, which we now offer out to the membership and to anybody wider who'd like to come along, which kind of, it feels like it's gone really full circle in me being able to do that. And I suppose I've also helped other colleagues along the way. So, for example, working with another former colleague who was in the international language support team, and we wrote up some work that we'd done together as a case study as well, again sharing that sort of third space professional viewpoint. So I just feel like it's a project that has acted as a springboard to me being able to support lots of other people with their own research activities and interests.
And also a remarkably practical piece of work as well. I think, so many people, we talk about research impact a lot in this sector, don't we? And often that's something that's very kind of off in the distance, or it's something that somebody else does. You put the research out into the world and see what happens. But it sounds like you've actually yourself been able to really take that and implement it and learn from it, develop it and share it with other people.
Yeah, I think it has been a really reflective process doing that. And obviously I've made mistakes along the way as I've done things. And it's really nice being able to kind of take that just practical learning journey and share that with people. And you're right, sort of use that to create greater impact from the initial piece of work.
Yeah, fantastic. Really useful stuff. I'm sure, though, that there must be things that haven't gone so well that have been challenging along the way. So what stands out there?
There's been a few. So I mentioned the COVID timing. Unfortunately, I also caught COVID at that time, which has really knocked onto my longer term health with long COVID. But it's something that therefore I have to be quite mindful of now in my day-to-day work, how I manage my energy. And that's something that, I'm still dealing with. But I think, again, it's opened up other opportunities for me. It's made me think about what I really value in my work and the things I want to keep and the things that I need to change as I've gone through that journey of managing a kind of chronic health condition alongside a full-time job, because I'm really passionate about what I do and I really want to stay in this field. But I've needed to rethink a couple of things as I've gone, and ICAS has been really supportive of that, which is fantastic. But it is, it's a challenge, and I think it's that thing, isn't it? If you never really know what's going on behind the scenes with somebody. So just being kind, and there's been a lot of people who've been really kind along the way, which has really helped.
Oh, it's fantastic that you've had so much support for that, both at the employer level and I'm sure from other people as well, because as you say, these things going on behind the scenes that we just don't know, and we present a face to the world which isn't necessarily reflective of what's really happening.
Yeah, can be really challenging. And I suppose the professional point links into that a little bit, because it's kind of the other challenge is just identity in this sort of research adjacent field, and having sat in so many different roles within institutions, being on admin or professional services or academic, and those kind of words that we used to just group people together in these big clumps. I was the same person in every single one of those clumps. And I think that's been a real challenge through my squiggly career. That sort of, well, who exactly am I, and how can people understand me and what I do? Because I don't always fit neatly into boxes. And I think that's true also of our members, when we've got careers practitioners who are brilliant and are doing pieces of research. Sometimes the organisation that they're working within doesn't know how to categorise them. Are they a researcher? Are they a practitioner? Are they an academic? What role are they holding? And so I can identify with that with our members, which is really useful, I think. But it's something that it has been a challenge to argue for the resource or time, or to make different things happen when people don't know quite how to categorize you.
Yeah, I think this is something that certainly came up a lot in my own experience, and comes up a lot with people that I talk to, is this sense of being in a kind of almost like a no man's land sometimes between all these different things that are going on. And yeah, I was in a situation myself where there were two of us doing almost exactly the same job, one on an academic contract and one on a professional services contract. And I don't know quite how they decided that. But I think the more that we have these conversations, the more it helps to share that experience so that people know they're not alone, and also to hopefully make some changes down the line. Maybe that we don't need to put people into such rigid boxes.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, we all benefit from that really collaborative working, from co-creation. And I have been in some fantastic situations where that has very much happened. But at the same time, I think there have been times in my career when I've looked around the room and thought, you haven't got everybody that you need here to do this piece of work well.
Yeah. So that speaks to that kind of co-creation and engagement side of things. So is that something that you've been involved with a bit as well?
Yeah, definitely trying to build that into my work more and more, particularly at AGCAS, as to how can we co-create with our membership to make sure that what we're doing is exactly what they need, and how do we make sure that we capture the voices, engage the membership. And it's challenging because it's 5,000 really diverse individuals. As I said at the beginning, the range of roles sitting within careers services has expanded. The number of careers practitioners and employability related roles sitting outside of careers services is also quite significant. So people based in faculties, people based in the research development team, all sorts of different places that these people might be sitting. So engaging all those diverse groups and providing what they need is a real challenge, but one that we will only succeed with, I suppose, by listening and by making sure that we are co-creating and bringing all those voices into the room, and trying to really be inclusive and diverse in our understanding of what careers means now.
Yeah, that's really interesting as well, from the perspective, again, of some of the people that I think will probably be listening to the podcast, is that often we think about co-production and that sort of thing only in relation to, say, potential users of research. We don't think about it in other situations, like the situation that you're in, where it's engaging a membership and making sure that you're properly representing what they want and need. And I think that sense of transferable skills between different job roles, different types of organizations, I think is a really valuable lesson as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we do all move through so many different careers now, don't we? And, take different roles during our working life, that actually we should be able to explore these things and to keep moving and to keep being represented. So that's what we're aiming to do.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I think, as you know, I do like to ask all of my guests, if they had a magic wand, what would they like to change about the sector that they work in? What would you like to use your magic wand for?
It's really, really challenging. And I've spent a bit of time mulling this one to try and come up with a really good answer, because I think what I do want is money, because it buys time. And I think that's really what I would want to use my magic wand for, because, like I say, I work with really kind of interested, curious members who want to be able to do certain things within their workplaces. And the current university environment is really pressured, as we all know. It's really challenging, and therefore being able to buy space in your day, your week, to have time to just think and be creative and be curious is something that a lot of people are finding really challenging at the moment. And, you know, again, for myself, you can probably hear how many different things I like to get involved in, stick my nose in. And so for me as well, being able to actually have the time and space to explore those things is what I think I would really value. So yeah, there's no magical way to do that, sadly.
No.
But recognizing that we all need a little bit of space around our day job to be able to explore and be more and question things. I think that's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, a little bit more kind of reflective practice. I think that would be lovely. I think, though, even with, it's not even about the actual time, is it? It's almost about people giving themselves the permission to do it as well, giving themselves permission, or managers giving people the permission to do it. Because I think we get so caught up in onto the next thing, onto the next thing, onto the next thing, that sometimes you can do a lot with little bits of time if you're deliberate about it. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely, yeah. I think giving yourself permission, as you say, to carve out that time, make space for the things that you know you need to do. And I think the research process kind of helps with that, doesn't it, in a way, because you do the project, but then you disseminate, you evaluate, you look for impact, and actually that time that you're spending doing that is time really well spent, because it's informing your future practice and it's helping you. So actually, sometimes I think research kind of mindsets and approaches can help us with that challenge. But as you can tell from me asking for more of it, I haven't got there yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen
I think,
yeah. That's a really interesting way of thinking about it, though, that it's almost like having that official stamp that you've got this time is for research, or, you know, this money is for doing research. It almost gives you that permission to do the thinking and gives you that space. And maybe that is that's making me wonder if that's one of the biggest differences between these kind of professional services roles and research roles, is that expectation of thinking, reflecting, taking the time to consider what might be different. Interesting. Rather than just doing stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we build it in, don't we? We build in time into bids in a research setting, in an academic setting. But I think when you're doing research, perhaps initially you're maybe not funded, you're perhaps, or it's a little bit of a pot of something, and you've just got a bit of money, and maybe you're not, kind of allowing for that time, or you're not recognizing it. So yeah, the money to buy the time is important. But yes, you're right. Also giving yourself the permission to actually do the reflection is also really, really vital.
Interesting. Fantastic. Well, I think that to begin to close our conversation, it would be amiss to have somebody who is in the careers world and not ask them about what their advice would be to people who are coming through. I would say following your footsteps, but I'm guessing not many people will follow exactly the same path that you did. But perhaps people who are coming through who are interested in this careers and professional development world, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think probably it's quite a unique journey, but probably the way that I went about it was exploring the things that interested me. And I think that's really, really important in anybody's career, but also not waiting for permission. Sometimes I maybe sat a little longer than I should with something and just waiting for somebody to tell me that I could do it, when actually you really don't necessarily need to do that. If you want to start exploring something, start reading around it, start thinking about it, start looking at, will somebody fund me? You know, institutionally, is there a little bit of money here? Have we got some sort of pot of funding that I can explore? Or have we got a little bit of a staff development course or something that I can go on to look at this more widely? Can I get somebody to pay for me to go on this ACAS training that sounds really good? You know, actually just starting to put yourself forward for those things and being confident in your own abilities, because certainly in the career space, you're the expert. You're seeing students day in, day out. You're collecting data yourself all the time about what students want, what they're experiencing, how employers are behaving, what their graduate outcomes are, all sorts of different things. So actually being confident in that and putting yourself forward for the opportunities that you're interested in, I'd say would be really key.
Yeah, fantastic. Excellent advice. Now, well, thank you so much for taking the time to come along and have a chat. If anybody would like to connect with you or find out more about what you do or about AgCast, where's the best place to track you down?
So yeah, we've got the AgCast website, so agcast.org.uk for the organisation. And then for myself, you'll find me on LinkedIn. Don't think there's many Claire Toogoods out there, so it should be relatively easy to track me down. And I'm always happy to have conversations in this space about careers more widely. So yes, please do get in touch.
Fantastic. We'll put those links in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming along and telling us about what you do. It's been lovely to chat.
Thank you, Sarah. I've really enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening to Research Adjacent. If you're listening in a podcast app, please check you're subscribed and then use the links in the episode description to find full show notes and to follow the podcast on LinkedIn or Instagram. You can also find all the links and other episodes at www.researchadjacent.com. Research Adjacent is presented and produced by Sarah McCluskey, and the theme music is by Lemon Music Studios on Pixabay. And you, yes you, get a big gold star for listening right to the end. See you next time.